Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering your food stamps have been cut off, that your family's grocery card no longer works. That's the terrifying possibility looming with the 2025 government shutdown. As Congress fails to pass funding, many federal programs are at risk of suspension, and one of the most vital ones for millions of Americans, SNAP, food stamps, and related nutrition supports, could be next. In this video, we'll break down exactly what a shutdown means for food assistance programs, how long benefits might last, which programs are most vulnerable, and what you should do right now to protect yourself or your loved ones. Don't wait until your next meal is at risk, this is urgent. Let's dive in. What happens in a government shutdown? When the federal government shuts down, it's not that everything stops, but many services do. The law prohibits federal agencies from obligating or spending money without valid appropriations. Non-essential employees get furloughed, and many discretionary programs lose their funding. Meanwhile, essential services, like national security, certain law enforcement, and parts of health and welfare, often continue in a limited capacity. Because nutrition programs like SNAP and WIC rely on annual funding legislation, they are vulnerable. If Congress does not pass continuing resolutions, CRs, or full appropriations, some of these programs might be reduced or paused altogether. Agencies must cease or scale back activities that depend on annual discretionary funding. Essential functions remain, but capacity is limited. Programs that require yearly reauthorization face immediate risk. States and local partners may be called on to step in. The status of SNAP, food stamps, during a shutdown. SNAP is one of the most critical safety nets in America. In many past shutdowns, SNAP has been partially safeguarded for a short period because benefits are often obligated in advance. What does that mean? Because states typically send SNAP data and benefit files in the month prior, the funding for the next month is often already locked in before the shutdown even takes effect. That means the first month after a shutdown usually doesn't see an interruption. But beyond that, things get shaky. October benefits are often already obligated and thus protected. States communicate with their EBT vendor ahead to load benefits. If the shutdown drags on, funding reserves or contingency funds must be tapped. Once reserves are exhausted, payments could be delayed or halted. Vulnerabilities, WIC, state programs and nutrition assistance. While SNAP might survive the first month, other nutrition programs are far more fragile. One of the most vulnerable is WIC, either Women, Infants, and Children Supplemental Nutrition Program. Unlike SNAP, WIC is not always fully funded in advance and depends more heavily on annual appropriations or state flexibility. Several state and federal sources suggest WIC funding could run out in a matter of days to a few weeks during a shutdown, meaning families relying on formula, food vouchers, or nutrition counseling could lose access. States may scramble to cover the gap, but many don't have resources to sustain it for long. WIC operates on shorter funding cycles than SNAP. States may use leftover funds or state dollars temporarily. If WIC lapses, pregnant women, infants, and toddlers are directly endangered. Local clinics and offices may close or reduce services. How long can benefits last during a shutdown? It depends on reserves, prior obligations, and state capacity. Here's how the timeline often plays out. First month, SNAP generally safe because payments for that month have typically already been obligated. Second month, it gets risky, states begin to consume contingency funds or reserve balances. Beyond month 2, without new appropriations, many programs run out, causing delayed or cancelled benefits. WIC and other programs may fail earlier, sometimes within weeks. In short, the longer the shutdown, the greater the risk that food benefits stop completely. Real-world examples and past shutdowns. Looking back helps us see what might happen this time. In the 2018 to 2019 shutdown, SNAP relied on a $3 billion contingency fund, which helped maintain benefits, until it ran low, threatening 38 million Americans. Food inspectors, USDA staff, and nutrition services were furloughed or scaled back. In some cases, school meal programs and child nutrition supports faced delays. The lesson, even with safeguards, extended shutdowns endanger the most basic food supports. What's already happening in 2025? This isn't fearmongering, some red flags are already visible. Reuters reports that around 6.7 million low-income Americans' food aid is in jeopardy. The USDA is trying to stretch unspent funds and reserves. WIC officials warn that program funds could run dry in days or weeks. States are bracing. In Massachusetts, state officials say October SNAP benefits are expected to go through, but beyond that is uncertain. Feeding America says food banks and pantries are preparing for greater demand as federal support wavers. The shutdown began on October 1, 2025, after Congress failed to pass appropriations. Roughly 800,000 federal workers have been furloughed, and social services face strain. Who is most at risk? The loss of food assistance will not affect all households equally. The most vulnerable will be hit hardest: families with children, pregnant or breastfeeding women, seniors on fixed incomes, people living paycheck to paycheck, low-income households that rely heavily on SNAP or WIC. These groups depend on consistent and predictable benefits. A delay or suspension could mean skipped meals or dangerous levels of food insecurity. What you can do now to protect yourself. If you or someone you know relies on these programs, take action immediately. Stock up modestly on non-perishable foods, but don't overbuy. Check with your state SNAP or WIC office for assurances or updates. File or renew applications early. Document your eligibility and communications. Connect with local food banks or community pantries as backup. Stay informed. Congress may pass a funding extension at any moment. What the government and Congress must do. The responsibility lies heavily with lawmakers. To prevent catastrophe, Congress must pass continuing resolutions or full funding bills. They should prioritize nutrition programs and designate emergency funding. Federal agencies should tap contingency funds and adjust rapidly. States should be allowed flexibility to use reserves or state funds to keep programs running. Delaying action risks violating the right to food security for millions. Final thoughts and a call to action. The prospect of food stamps stopping any day now is not hyperbole, it's very real if the shutdown persists. SNAP and WIC are the frontline supports many Americans depend on. If these programs are cut, lives will suffer. Stay alert, stay informed, and act now. Check your benefits, plan your food resources, and let your representatives know that funding nutrition support is non-negotiable. Hit like if you learned something important. Subscribe for urgent updates. Comment below, are you or someone you know relying on SNAP or WIC? How would a pause in benefits affect your household?